based on the counseling they received from their people, what they perceive as the tax increases coming from the Biden administration. Also, I guess, probably says something about how stout of heart they think Republicans will be to do on taxes what they've done on the federalization of our elections, which is to filibuster and to hold the line and say, no, we're not going to be on board for any of this. And they profile Medline Industries. For 110 years, 4 generations of Mills family members earned their money by expanding their great-grandfather's Chicago apron business into one of the nation's largest private companies of medical supplies in this instance. And they sold part of Medline Industries' $30 billion transaction, one of the biggest leveraged buyouts in the healthcare industry, perhaps the biggest. The threat of subjecting billions in proceedings to additional capital gains taxes motivated the Klan to get it done before the end of 2021, when higher rates could take effect. They know that the whole clawback, making it retroactive, that's not going to happen, but an increase, that's very likely. And this is one of the ways that government policy creates externalities. It incentivizes people to do things they wouldn't otherwise do, and it's not necessarily in the best interest of employees or the best interest of their business even, except to the extent they're trying to avoid higher costs that they see down, in the near term down the road. But it's not about making their business better, more efficient. It's not about responding to market forces. It's responding to the arbitrariness of government. And so 2021 portends to be an interesting year, probably a decent growth year, the combination of these sorts of actions combined with coming out of the pandemic. But if what Biden and Harris and that the Democrat Socialists have proposed, if anything like that comes to fruition, then 2022 is not going to be such a good year, it would seem. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Steve Moore, economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, Trumponomics author. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. What about that? The all the talk about what to do this year in advance of what might be coming effective Jan 1.
So I have to correct you on one thing that you just said, Dan.
I'm
not so sure that I believe that the Biden administration is really digging in to make sure that this tax increase is retroactive. And you were saying you don't think they're going to be able to get it. Now, you might be right about that, but I wouldn't bet the farm on it. I mean, Janet Yellen, who, by the way, is the most disappointing person. I supported her for Treasury Secretary. I thought she'd be the sane voice in the Biden administration, but boy, has she been terrible.
Yeah.
By the way,
loved her on Captain Kangaroo.
Climate change is a existential threat. I'm like, I didn't know Janet Yellen was a meteorologist. Anyway, she really made the case in the congressional hearing for making this tax increase on capital gains retroactive to, I believe, April 15th or April 30th. I forget the exact date. So beware, folks. I mean, they may claw back and try to get money out of you at transactions that you already made. But you are spot on correct that the history is very clear on this. Every time we've raised the capital gains tax, what happens is everybody rushes to sell their stock before they have to pay the tax, the extra tax on that. And so you could see just a spurt of selling as this date gets near. But I actually think that it's going to be difficult for Biden to get this massive tax increase done. I think that right now the Republicans are pretty much, I shouldn't say pretty much, they're entirely opposed to every tax increase that Biden has proposed. They're all horrible for the economy. And I don't know if they can get, the 50 senators. I don't think they can get Manchin, Sinema, and a bunch of others. So, playing some defense right now is good. One other quick thing about this, what I find detestable about this new tax on death, basically they would get rid of what's called step-up basis, the capital gains. So let's say you had a business that was, started with, let's say, $500,000 of capital, and your parents or grandparents built it up to maybe a $100 million company. You'd have to pay the tax on the entire, increase in the valuation of that at the time of the death. And you're going to have literally, family farms and family businesses, family ranches, where the heirs have to sell the business to pay the taxes. That's crazy. That should not happen in America.
Well, President Biden, he's had a bad week. I mean, he's missed the vaccination goal. His voting rights legislation was blocked, and the infrastructure bill he's trying to negotiate. So
Yeah.
what do you see happening with that?
Yeah. So it's a great question, Amy. And what I've been saying for the last several weeks, I said this on Cubbo's show the other night, that I think what we've reached is called what I'm calling peak Biden, which is that Biden peaked about 3 or 4 weeks ago in terms of his public support and in his congressional support for what he's trying to do. I mean, a month ago or 2 months ago, I was ready to jump off a cliff. I mean, I thought Democrats were going to, add D.C. as a state, that they were going to pack the Supreme Court, that they were going to get rid of the filibuster, that they were going to do the Green New Deal, that they were, just a blizzard of absolutely horrible pieces of legislation. Now it looks like the Biden agenda is completely stalled out, which is very good news. I'm always asked, why is the stock market so good right now? And it's because we're reopening, and I think our worst fear is that the Democrats would just, lockstep vote for all this stuff. Looks like it's not going to happen. I mean, the less that happens out of Washington this year, the better.
What do you take away from the apparent, we won't know for a few days yet, but the apparent victory in the New York City mayor's race by Eric Adams, who, again, we don't have any real free marketeer in that race, but when it compared to AOC's choice in that race, I mean, he's Milton Friedman. So what does that say? And do you see that as a canary in the coal mine for 2022?
So you must know something I don't. Have they actually declared a winner yet?
No, they haven't declared a winner because they got to wait 10 days for the absentee ballots to be counted.
Okay.
They got to, do because they did that ranked voting.
Right.
So they got to do that. But I mean, he's 75,000 votes ahead. I think it's more likely than not he's the victor. And if that's and by the way, just even him and Yang getting 44% of the vote combined, seen as more moderate. I mean, again, in context of Democrat socialists against the real radical Marxists in that race says something.
Yeah, look, I think there's something going on in this country right now. I think that the Biden people completely misread the mandate that they had from voters. I mean, the reason Biden won did not because people wanted massive tax increases and trillions of dollars in new spending and, end the American energy revolution and all these things that they're trying to do. The reason Biden won was people didn't like Trump. Right? I mean, they didn't like his personality, and that's why Trump lost the suburbs and Biden became president. Democrats came in just as they did when Clinton won and just as they did when Obama won, and they completely misread their mandate. And they thought, oh, my gosh, now we can do anything we want. We can rush to the left, and they've done that. And people are like, whoa, we didn't vote for this. We just wanted to get rid of Trump. And by the way, people liked Trump's policies. They just didn't like him, right? That was the problem for Trump. And so what you're seeing is, I think, a backlash against that. And when New York City, votes for a moderate Democrat, that's a big deal. I mean, let's face it. Who's been the mayor for the last 8 years in New York City?
Right.
Bill de Blasio is the biggest idiot who ever walked the planet. He makes AOC look like a moderate, and now you've got somebody. It looks like this new what's his name, Adams. That he is
Eric Adams.
He's pro police.
Well, he's a former police officer.
That's a big deal. And he's pro education reform, and he says we don't need new taxes in New York. I mean, that's a big deal. So I think this is an indication that voters are in a bit of revolt against the left-wing Biden agenda.
Yeah, and I think Democrats are worried that crime is going to be it's going to beat them in the next election for sure, and this is proof of that.
No question about it. I mean, crime is you guys are right in the center of it in Chicago, where there's so many murders and so many other kinds of crimes being committed. I agree with you. I can't, the defund the police thing. And also, I think don't underestimate the backlash against, Dan's favorite thing, critical race theory. I mean, there is a huge backlash. I live in Northern Virginia, and Loudoun County. Followed this. They had a little. I remember I got a little notice saying, "Oh, we're going to have a little rally." People thought maybe 100 people would show up, and thousands of people showed up, and they're angry. And it wasn't, by the way, just whites. It was blacks, Hispanics, Asians. People hate this lunatic idea of critical race theory, and so I'm totally with you guys. I think there is a backlash. I think people. This is still a center-right country. It's not a center-left country. And we're patriotic. We love America. People rebel against the idea that And we have an American president who's running around the country saying America is a systemically racist country. That's outrageous. What a slur against this great country of ours.
He is Steve Moore, economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, Trumponomics author. Steve, thanks as always.
Okay, guys, have a great week.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Barbecue, bags, and brews on the driveway sounds great about now, but are you ready to entertain on that dirty, oil-stained area you call your backyard? Why bother putting up the party lights in the garage when it'll only highlight the oil spills and stains on the concrete? No oil stain removal is too big or too small for Cabino Environmental. Homeowners and business owners can use the Cabino Oil Stain Remover. It's the most powerful oil stain lifting formula on the market. This is not the same stuff you think you can buy at the